Elena Moretti had always believed in love, in the sacred promises exchanged between two souls bound by trust. Raised in a warm, close-knit family in Florence, she carried with her the unwavering belief that marriage was built on respect, loyalty, and devotion. When she met Luca Romano, a charismatic and successful financier, it felt like fate had carefully orchestrated their union. Their first meeting was serendipitous, locked eyes across a bustling cafe near the University of Milan. There was something effortless about their connection, the kind of spark that turns strangers into lovers within a heartbeat. Luca, with his quiet confidence and easy charm, made her feel safe, cherished. In the early days of their relationship, he was thoughtful and attentive, whisking her away to candlelit dinners overlooking the city skyline, surprising her with meaningful gifts that always seemed to reflect her unspoken desires. To those around her, Luca was the perfect gentleman, and Elena, deeply in love, never once doubted his sincerity. After 2 years of courtship, he proposed in the rolling vineyards of Tuscany, the golden sunset casting a warm glow over the moment that felt like a dream. Their wedding, an intimate and elegant affair, was held in the same vineyard, with soft music drifting through the air as they promised each other forever. For the first few years, their marriage was everything Elena had hoped for. They built a home that reflected their shared passions, a chic apartment in Milan, decorated with the art she loved and the books they both collected. When Luca was promoted to a senior position at his investment firm, requiring longer hours and frequent travel, Elena was unwavering in her support. As a freelance designer, she had the flexibility to be the steady foundation while he climbed the corporate ladder. She celebrated his achievements, believed in his ambitions, and never once questioned the long nights at the office. But fate has a cruel way of unraveling illusions. It started subtly, the mention of Sofia De Luca, a junior manager in his firm. "She's brilliant," Luca would say at dinner, his admiration slipping into conversations too often. At first, Elena thought nothing of it. After all, Luca had never given her a reason to doubt him. He had never hidden messages, never smelled of unfamiliar perfume, never acted strangely. Yet, over time, the name Sofia became a constant presence. "Sofia saved the meeting," he would remark. "Sofia had the perfect pitch." The creeping unease gnawed at Elena, whispering doubts she tried to silence. It wasn't until she found the receipt for a diamond necklace, one she had never received, that her world began to tilt. Elena's work as a freelance graphic designer allowed her flexible hours, a luxury that made her believe she could provide stability at home while Luca climbed the corporate ladder. She celebrated every milestone he achieved, each promotion and bonus reinforcing her faith in the life they were building together. Their marriage moved along at a steady, promising pace, until the cracks began to show. It started subtly, almost innocently. Over dinner, Luca casually mentioned Sofia De Luca, a newly hired junior manager tasked with reshaping the company's client acquisition strategy. "She's brilliant at what she does," he said one evening, his tone laced with admiration. "She has an incredible talent for sealing deals." At first, Elena brushed it off. It wasn't unusual for Luca to speak about work, and she had no reason to suspect anything sinister. But as days turned into weeks, Sofia's name began slipping into their conversations more frequently. "Sofia saved the meeting today," Luca would say. Sofia came up with the perfect pitch. The ease with which he spoke about her, the unfiltered praise, Elena's instincts stirred, though she tried to silence them. Luca had never given her a reason to doubt him. He never hid his phone, never smelled of unfamiliar perfume, never acted strangely. And yet, something in the way his voice softened when he spoke about Sofia made Elena uneasy. Then came the late nights, the urgent business trips, the weekends swallowed by networking events. Elena told herself that this was just part of being married to a successful man. Hadn't Luca always been transparent? Hadn't he introduced her to his colleagues at holiday parties, letting her step into his world? Still, she couldn't ignore the way he became laser-focused whenever Sofia entered the room at these events. Their conversations carried a familiarity, laced with inside jokes, as if they were sharing something unspoken. The unease in Elena's chest grew heavier, but she forced herself to trust the man she had promised forever to. Until the night she found the receipt. It was tucked inside the pocket of Luca's suit jacket, A Tiffany & Co. jewelry receipt for a delicate diamond necklace. A gift, clearly, but not for her. Elena's pulse pounded in her ears as she stared at the slip of paper. Had she simply forgotten a gift he had given her? No, Luca hadn't surprised her with jewelry in months, maybe even years. Panic clawed at her throat, but she willed herself to stay calm. There had to be an explanation. That evening, she set the table carefully, plating his favorite meal, roasted sea bass with lemon and rosemary. 2 glasses of white wine sat waiting as she rehearsed her words. When Luca finally walked through the door, nearly an hour late, Elena forced a smile. "I was getting worried," she said, her voice steady. "I know work has been busy, but we need to talk." Luca barely spared a glance at the carefully set table. Loosening his tie, he muttered something about a rough day and made his way toward the bedroom. Elena followed, her fingers gripping the receipt in her hand. "I found something today," she said softly. Luca froze, just for a fraction of a second. Then, as if catching himself, he let out a forced laugh. "Oh, that?" He ran a hand through his hair. "It was for a client, Elisabetta Rossi. She's been with the firm for years, and she hinted she might take her business elsewhere. You know how high net worth clients can be. It was just a token of appreciation." The words came smoothly, almost too smoothly. Elena wanted to believe him. But for the first time in their marriage, doubt sank deep into her bones. Elena set the table with care, arranging the candles so their soft glow flickered against the polished wood. She had prepared Luca's favorite meal, roasted sea bass with lemon and rosemary, paired with 2 glasses of chilled white wine. Tonight she needed answers. When Luca finally walked through the door, nearly an hour late, she forced a warm smile. "I was getting worried," she said, her voice steady despite the anxiety pressing against her ribs. "I know work has been hectic, but we need to talk." Luca barely acknowledged the effort she had put into the evening. He loosened his tie, muttered something about a long day, and moved toward the bedroom to change. Elena followed, her heart pounding. "I found a receipt today," she said softly, holding up the small slip of paper. For a fleeting second, he froze. Then, recovering quickly, he let out a forced laugh. "Oh, that? It was for a client. Elisabetta Rossi. She's been with the firm for years and hinted at taking her business elsewhere. You know how these high-profile clients are. Sometimes you have to go the extra mile to keep them happy." His explanation sounded plausible. Almost. But his eyes refused to meet hers. Elena inhaled sharply, trying to keep her voice calm. "A diamond necklace, though? That seems excessive for a business gift." Luca's jaw tightened. "It's nothing, Elena. Just part of client relations." They ate dinner in silence that night, the weight of unspoken truths thick in the air. Elena's stomach churned with unease, her appetite all but gone. Over the next few days, the signs became impossible to ignore. Luca guarded his phone more closely than ever, his eyes flickering to the screen at odd moments. Late-night meetings stretched longer. When he spoke about work, Sophia's name surfaced too often, his admiration for her becoming increasingly apparent. Elena confided in her closest friend, Isabella, over lunch at a quiet cafe. Isabella listened intently, her expression darkening. "I hate to say this, Elena, but that necklace story doesn't add up," she said gently, reaching for Elena's hand. "You have every right to be concerned. Maybe you should look into it." That night, Elena's hands trembled as she opened Luca's laptop. He had left it unlocked, his phone charging in the other room while he showered. Her pulse roared in her ears as she navigated to his messages. It didn't take long to find what she had feared, a series of flirtatious exchanges between Luca and Sophia. Their words, though careful, carried unmistakable intent. Plans to meet after work, references to missing each other. And then the final blow, talk of buying something special for our future. The weight of betrayal settled over her like a crushing wave. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. Elena had no idea how deep the lies ran, but she was about to find out. Buying something special for our future. The words blurred before Elena's eyes. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the messages, reading and rereading them, hoping she had somehow misunderstood. But there was no misinterpretation. Her husband was building a future without her. The betrayal hit like a sledgehammer, sending a sickening wave of nausea through her. The room spun, and for a brief moment, she thought she might collapse. But she forced herself to keep reading, needing to see every lie, every carefully crafted deception. No explanation could soften the sharp edges of what she had uncovered. That night, she confronted Luca. Armed with the printed messages, she stood in their apartment, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, holding up the damning evidence. Luca's expression darkened. His initial reaction wasn't guilt, but anger. "You went through my messages?" His voice rose with outrage. "That's an invasion of privacy, Elena." She ignored his attempt to shift blame. "Are you in love with Sophia?" Silence. Luca ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "It was nothing," he finally muttered. "A harmless flirtation. It didn't mean anything." But the hesitation in his voice, the way he avoided her gaze, it meant everything. Elena didn't stay the night. She packed a small bag and left, seeking refuge at Isabella's apartment. The moment her friend opened the door, Elena collapsed into her arms, sobs racking her body. She cried for hours, mourning the love she had fought so hard to protect, the marriage that now lay in ruins. Luca called, again and again. Messages flooded her phone, each one a desperate attempt to explain, to minimize, to promise that it was over. But Elena didn't respond. She needed space to breathe, to think. Little did she know, the betrayal ran deeper than she could have ever imagined. Days stretched into weeks, and while Luca swore he had ended things with Sophia, Elena's instincts refused to let her trust him. Something about his demeanor felt off, as if he were holding on to a secret, even more devastating than the affair itself. Then came the message that changed everything. A notification lit up her phone. A private message from an unexpected name, Matteo Ricci, one of Luca's longtime colleagues. A man she had met at corporate events, always polite, always reserved. "I need to speak with you about Luca. Please call me when you can." Elena's stomach clenched. Why would Matteo reach out? What else was there to know? Heart pounding, she agreed to meet him at a small cafe near her apartment. Matteo arrived looking troubled, his brow furrowed as he stirred his espresso. "Elena," he said, his voice low. "I don't like getting involved in people's personal matters, but I couldn't stay silent." He hesitated, then leaned in, his next words sending a chill down her spine. "I know what Luca and Sophia have been planning." Elena's breath caught in her throat. She had thought the worst was behind her. She was wrong. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And Luca's betrayal? It was far from over. Matteo hesitated, his eyes darting around the cafe as if he feared being overheard. Then, in a low voice, he said, "It's not just an affair, Elena. Sophia has convinced him to start over. They're planning an entirely new life together." Elena's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She gripped her teacup tightly, her hands trembling. "What do you mean, a new life?" she asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Matteo sighed, his expression filled with regret. "I overheard them talking. They're discussing marriage." Elena's breath caught in her throat. "That's impossible. He's already married to me." Matteo's face darkened. "Sophia's been bragging about it, telling people in the office that Luca is ready to start fresh." He swallowed hard. "I didn't want to believe it, but then I saw the ring." Elena's stomach twisted. "Ring?" Matteo nodded. "She wears it on a necklace. It looks like an engagement band, and..." He hesitated before adding, "She's been making comments, saying things like, 'We'll be rid of that nuisance soon.'" Elena felt the sharp bite of her fingernails pressing into her palm. Rid of her? Her vision blurred as hot tears welled in her eyes. She barely remembered thanking Matteo for his honesty before rushing out of the cafe, her body trembling with disbelief. The city around her carried on as if nothing had changed, people laughing, cars honking, life moving forward, while hers was falling apart. That night, she confronted Luca. He tried to deny it at first, his lies coming effortlessly. But Elena wasn't backing down this time. She demanded the truth, her voice unshaken despite the storm raging inside her. Finally, his defenses cracked. "Yes," he whispered, his eyes brimming with something that resembled guilt. "I love Sophia." Elena's breath hitched, but she refused to break. "She makes me feel alive," he continued, "and she's been pushing me to start over." Elena's body turned cold. "Start over?" she echoed. Luca didn't answer. Instead, he looked away, his silence confirming everything. Her gaze dropped to his hands that once held her so tightly, and then to the floor, where a single suitcase sat by the door. packed, waiting. He had already made his decision. Sophia had won. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. Luca had destroyed their marriage, but Elena was about to remind him that betrayal always comes with consequences. "We haven't figured out the details yet," Luca muttered. We plan to keep it quiet for now." Elena stared at him, disbelief crashing over her like a tidal wave. Even now, as he stood before her admitting to his betrayal, he was already planning his future with Sophia, while still legally married to her. "Leave," she said, her voice firm. Luca hesitated for only a moment before nodding. He packed a bag that night, offering weak apologies that meant nothing. When the door finally clicked shut behind him, Elena stood frozen in the silence. Then her legs gave out, and she sank onto the couch, numb. The man she had built a life with, the one she had trusted beyond all reason, had been planning a wedding with another woman, while still bound to her by law. For a while it felt like the end of the world. But deep inside, a small, determined spark refused to die. She didn't know how or when, but she would rise from this. And as fate would have it, she would soon discover something that would change everything. An unexpected twist in Luca and Sophia's plans, one that would pave the way for a quiet but unforgettable response. Elena sought solace in the smallest routines, watering her houseplants, walking along the cobbled streets of Milan, losing herself in new freelance design projects. She refused to let betrayal consume her. Instead, she wrote. Page after page, she poured her heartbreak onto paper, letting the words carry her pain rather than allowing it to fester inside her. Her closest friends rallied around her. Isabella offered her a spare room whenever she needed it, though Elena chose to remain in her apartment, for now. It still held too many memories, but it was hers. Her parents called regularly, their unwavering support a lifeline. Matteo, guilt-ridden over being the bearer of bad news, checked in every few days. Then, one morning as she casually scrolled through her emails, something made her freeze. A subject line stood out among the rest. Wedding invitation. Luca and Sophia. Elena's pulse pounded in her ears. Her first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity, dark and undeniable, won. With a shaking hand, she clicked it open. Swirling gold script on a background of white roses announced the details. A grand ceremony, a private estate, less than a month away. Elena's breath came in short, sharp bursts. Luca was still legally married to her. And yet, here he was, sending out invitations as if his past didn't exist. Had he somehow filed for divorce behind her back? Was he forging documents? A storm of anger and confusion threatened to consume her. But then something unexpected happened. A strange, almost eerie calm settled over her. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Carla Russo, a sharp but familiar voice answered. Elena exhaled slowly. I need a lawyer. Carla, an old acquaintance and one of the best in family law, listened as Elena explained Luca's brazen move. He can't legally marry someone else, Carla said, disgust evident in her tone. Unless he's forging documents, this wedding is a sham. Elena's lips curled into the faintest smirk. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And Elena had every intention of making sure he received that gift. While he's still married to you, Carla emphasized, this isn't just immoral, it's illegal. Unless he's forging documents, that wedding has no legal standing. Elena suspected that was exactly what Luca and Sophia were doing. Sophia had always been audacious, and Luca, blinded by infatuation, would do anything to keep her. But instead of allowing panic to consume her, Elena made a bold decision. She was going to attend the wedding. Not to cause a scene, but to present Luca with a gift he would never expect. She didn't share the specifics of her plan with Carla, only assuring her that she would handle it with discretion. The following weeks passed in a blur. Through whispers in the office, Elena discovered that Luca had been taking extended time off, most likely to prepare for his wedding. Meanwhile, Sophia flaunted her engagement ring, confident that Elena was too broken to fight back. They had no idea that she'd been quietly gathering evidence. Phone records, text messages, financial statements. She even uncovered a suspicious deposit into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Money that Luca had secretly funneled away. And the deeper she dug, the worse it became. Matteo discreetly forwarded internal office memos and emails confirming that Luca and Sofia had misused corporate funds to finance their lavish wedding. If this information reached the right hands, both of them could face serious consequences. But Elena wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted something more. A moment. A moment that would not only expose Luca for the fraud he was, but also allow her to walk away from this nightmare with her dignity and her future intact. Finally, the day arrived. Elena dressed in a simple yet elegant black cocktail dress. She might be the scorned wife, but she refused to let that define her. With her head high and a heart pounding with anticipation, she set off for the private estate where the ceremony would take place. She carried a small, neatly wrapped box, a wedding gift of sorts. One that would send Luca into a spiral of panic he never saw coming. The estate was breathtaking. A long, tree-lined driveway led up to a sprawling mansion perched on a cliffside, overlooking the sea. Waitstaff in crisp uniforms bustled about, ensuring perfection in every detail. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing an ornate floral arch where the vows would be exchanged. Elena stepped out of the taxi, the salty ocean breeze stirring her hair. She approached the check-in table, where a woman with a clipboard gave her a polite but wary glance. "Name, please?" Elena hesitated for only a fraction of a second before offering a confident smile. "Elena Romano," she said, purposefully using Luca's last name. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And as she stepped into the wedding, she knew. This was the moment everything changed. She said it with confidence, using Luca's last name for emphasis. The woman at the check-in table scanned her list, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Elena knew she wasn't on the official guest list, but after a brief hesitation, the woman waved her through. Whether it was out of intimidation or simple courtesy, no one wanted a scene at an event as elegant as this. As she moved discreetly among the guests, Elena caught fragments of conversation, finally found the right woman. "She's much better for him than his last wife. He was trapped in that marriage for too long." Elena's jaw clenched at the casual way these strangers rewrote her history. As if she had been nothing more than an obstacle, a mistake Luca had corrected. She steadied her breath, her fingers tightening around the small, wrapped box she carried. Near the floral archway, she spotted Luca, standing in a perfectly tailored suit, shaking hands with an older man, probably receiving last-minute instructions. And then there was Sofia. Draped in a lacy white gown that hugged every curve, she radiated confidence, her triumphant smile a clear declaration of victory. The officiant glanced at his watch. The ceremony was about to begin. Luca took his place at the front. Sofia lifted her bouquet, stepping into position beside him. A hush fell over the gathering, and then Elena stood. She moved gracefully from the back row, her heels clicking softly against the stone pathway. A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads turning as guests whispered among themselves. Luca's eyes locked onto hers, and in that instant she saw it. The sheer panic settling over his features. His face paled, his body tensed. Sofia, at first confused, quickly followed his gaze. Her expression darkened, lips pressing into a tight, venomous line. "Before you begin," Elena said, her voice surprisingly steady, "I have a gift for the bride and groom." She lifted the small, elegantly wrapped box, the gold paper shimmering under the afternoon sun. A few curious onlookers leaned in, their fascination growing. Sofia turned to Luca, her glare sharp, demanding he handle this now. "What is this?" Luca stammered, stepping forward. His complexion had turned ghostly. Elena smiled, the picture of serenity. "Just a token of my good wishes for your new beginning." There was an unmistakable edge to her tone. She extended the box, and Luca hesitated before reluctantly taking it. In that moment, the entire crowd seemed to hold its breath. Some recognized her. Some had met her at corporate events. Others had only heard whispers of the wife Luca had left behind. Now they all watched. Luca's hands shook as he unwrapped the gift. Inside was a slim folder and a USB drive. He swallowed hard. "What is this?" His voice cracked. Elena's eyes held a calm intensity. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now, the truth was about to come to light. A collective gasp swept through the guests. Sofia's face contorted with rage as she snatched the folder, her manicured nails digging into the paper. "This is ridiculous," she hissed, flipping through the pages. "None of this is true." But the blood draining from Luca's face told a different story. He recognized the authenticity of every document. He knew exactly what this meant. If these files reached the authorities, or worse, the company's board, he would lose everything. His career, his reputation, maybe even his freedom. Panic flickered across his features. Sophia turned on Elena, her eyes burning with fury, as if sheer hatred could make her disappear. But Elena wasn't backing down. The efficient, clearly unsettled, exchanged wary glances with the guests, unsure how to proceed. Elena took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then, with quiet finality, she turned toward Luca one last time. "Congratulations," she said, her voice smooth but sharp. "May you and Sophia find all the happiness you deserve." And with that, Elena's gaze remained steady, her voice even as she said, "Consider this my wedding gift to you both." Luca's hands trembled as he flipped open the folder. Inside, you'll find proof that you and Sophia used company funds for personal expenses, including this extravagant wedding. A murmur spread through the crowd. Elena continued, her words cutting through the stunned silence. "There are also digital records of your messages, plans to siphon money into offshore accounts, and of course, undeniable proof that you are still legally married to me, making this entire ceremony a crime." Alked away. Behind her, chaos erupted. Luca stammered half-formed excuses to the stunned onlookers. Sophia furiously denied everything, her voice rising in desperation. The elegant ceremony had turned into a scandal, and Elena knew that no amount of damage control could fix what she had just exposed. Her pulse pounded as she crossed the manicured lawn, stepping onto the gravel driveway. Outwardly, she was composed, but inside, her heart hammered against her ribs. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, collecting financial ledgers, pulling records, ensuring that Luca had no legal grounds to remarry. Yet, now that it had unfolded, the sheer magnitude of it left her breathless. She had expected satisfaction, maybe even relief. Instead, she just felt exhausted. The moment she stepped into the small cottage she had rented nearby, her legs nearly gave out. She collapsed into a floral armchair, running a shaky hand through her hair. Her mind replayed every detail. The gasps of the guests, the fury in Sophia's eyes, the pale, panicked look on Luca's face. An hour later, her phone buzzed. Again and again. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. Elena had delivered her gift, and now the fallout had begun. Elena finally glanced at her phone, noticing a flood of messages from unknown numbers. Some were from wedding guests, others from Luca's colleagues. Some expressed outrage at his deception. Others, driven by curiosity, wanted details about what had really happened. She turned her phone to silent mode, unwilling to entertain anyone's questions. She had said her piece. The rest was up to them. Late that night, an unexpected message appeared on her screen. "We need to talk. Please." She ignored it. Minutes later, another followed. "I never meant for things to go this far. Sophia pushed me. I'm sorry." Elena's expression remained unreadable. She still didn't reply. Hours later, another text came through. "Call me. I'm begging you." With a steady breath, she powered off her phone. For the first time in months, she gave herself permission to rest. By morning, her quiet act of defiance had turned into something much larger. As she sipped her coffee, she scrolled through social media, half amused, half disheartened by what she saw. The scandal had exploded online. A few acquaintances from Luca's firm had posted cryptic messages. A wedding no one will forget, major fallout at a private estate. Elena exhaled slowly. Her heartbreak had become public gossip. But despite the chaos, she felt something unexpected. Relief. For months she had been the silent victim. Now she had taken control of the story, letting the truth speak for itself. The weight on her chest felt lighter, even if the path ahead was still uncertain. Meanwhile, Luca was scrambling to contain the damage. He had reached out to the company's legal team, desperate to bury the evidence of his financial misconduct. But Elena's carefully compiled documents were too damning to dismiss. Rumors spread that the board of directors was launching an internal investigation. In a matter of days, Luca found himself cornered. Colleagues who once admired him now avoided him. His superiors demanded explanations. And Sophia? She had vanished. Fearing legal repercussions, she disappeared without a trace, leaving Luca to deal with the fallout alone. Elena finally turned her phone back on, only to find a flood of voicemails from him, each one more desperate than the last. In one, he pleaded for forgiveness, claiming Sophia had manipulated him. In another, his desperation turned to anger. He threatened legal action, accusing her of humiliating him. But even he seemed to realize his threats were empty. Then came the knock. Unsteady, hesitant. Elena's stomach tightened as she walked to the door. Peering through the peephole, she saw Luca, disheveled, bleary-eyed. And for the first time, he looked like a man who had lost everything. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now he was standing at her door, waiting for the consequences to catch up with him. Elena hesitated, then cracked the door open just enough to see him. Luca stood there, disheveled, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. "What do you want?" she asked coldly, making no move to let him in. His voice was hoarse. I need to talk, Elena. Please." She studied him. This man, once her husband, once the center of her world, now felt like nothing more than a stranger. 5 minutes, she said curtly, stepping back. Luca hesitated before stepping inside. His eyes swept the cozy but unfamiliar surroundings before he settled into a chair at the small kitchen table. Elena remained standing, arms crossed. "Speak." Luca drew in a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never meant to hurt you like this. Sophia," she was persuasive. "She convinced me that we could build a better life together, that you and I were too different, and then things just spiraled out of control." Anger simmered beneath Elena's skin. "You decided to commit fraud and bigamy because you were persuaded?" Luca ran a tired hand over his face, exhaling deeply. "I was a fool," he admitted. "I can't undo what's been done, but I'm begging you, please don't take this to the board. Don't go to the authorities. If this evidence gets out, my career, my entire life, it'll be over." There it was, the real reason he had come. Not remorse, not love. Panic, preservation. Elena's eyes narrowed. She had expected a hollow apology, but this was a desperate plea for his own survival. "You're only here to protect yourself," she said flatly. Luca opened his mouth to protest, but she raised a hand to silence him. "You destroyed our marriage," she continued, her voice quiet but firm. "You tried to replace me, like I was nothing more than a placeholder. I owe you nothing." Luca flinched, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the table. "This evidence, it's proof of your lies and betrayal," she said. "Whether I choose to use it or not is entirely up to me, but don't expect any favors from me." A thick, suffocating silence settled between them. Luca bowed his head, silent tears slipping down his face. For a brief moment, Elena felt the ghost of something. Pity, maybe. A faint memory of the man she had once loved, the laughter they had shared. But pity wouldn't erase what he had done. And actions had consequences. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now, Luca was finally beginning to understand just how much he had lost. Elena thought back to the promises she and Luca had made under the golden vines of a Tuscan vineyard. Had there ever been a chance for mercy? Seeking clarity, she called Carla Russo, her lawyer. "If you want the best legal protection and a fair settlement," Carla said without hesitation, "exposing his financial misconduct will work in your favor. But don't let misplaced pity cloud your judgment. He has shown you exactly who he is." That night, Elena dreamed of that same vineyard, but this time, the vines crumbled to dust in her hands, leaving her alone in an empty, barren field. She awoke in a cold sweat, her heart racing, but the message was clear. Their marriage was beyond saving. Over the next week, the corporate investigation escalated. The board subpoenaed Luca's personal accounts, emails, and text messages. Elena hadn't even released her own trove of evidence yet, but rumors swirled that someone had even more damning information. Suspended from his role, Luca was drowning under scrutiny. Meanwhile, Sophia had disappeared. Some whispered she had fled on an extended vacation. Others believed she was lying low, hoping to salvage what was left of her reputation. Then one morning, Matteo told Elena something that caught her off guard. Sophia's desk had been cleared overnight. No emails, no goodbyes. It was as if she had never existed. And with each passing day, Elena felt herself returning to life. She dove back into her freelance design work, pouring herself into creativity. She booked a weekend retreat at a seaside wellness spa, indulging in yoga by the waves and herbal massages. For the first time in months, she could finally breathe. But peace was fleeting. On the last night of her retreat, as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of everything she had done settled over her. She had never imagined herself as the kind of person who would orchestrate a public downfall. But justice had demanded it. Luca had to learn that his actions carried consequences. And Sophia? If she thought she could walk into another woman's life and so easily replace her, she deserved a harsh lesson too. When Elena returned home, her phone rang. It was a name she didn't expect. Cristina Bianchi, the woman introduced herself. She was a high-ranking partner at Luca's firm. I believe you hold valuable information regarding Luca Romano's financial misconduct. Elena's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic, and the fallout was far from over. We'd like to settle this matter swiftly, Cristina Bianchi said, her tone crisp and professional. If this goes to trial, it will be messy for everyone. Elena sat across from her in a sleek conference room high above the bustling streets of Milan. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, but she barely noticed the view. She had agreed to the meeting, knowing this was her final move against Luca. Cristina extended a firm handshake before introducing two other senior partners. Elena placed a folder on the polished table and calmly laid out what she had discovered. Copies of suspicious bank transfers, links between Luca's personal accounts and corporate funds, and text messages, proving that he and Sophia had plotted to use company resources for their own gain. Cristina studied the documents carefully. "This is quite serious," she murmured, tapping her manicured nails against the desk. A brief exchange of glances passed between the partners. "We appreciate your candor, Signora Romano," one of them said. "Obviously, we have grounds to press charges, but we would rather avoid public litigation." Elena understood. A high-profile scandal would tarnish the company's reputation, eroding client trust. "What do you propose?" she asked, her voice steady. "We will terminate Luca's employment," another partner stated firmly. "As for the misused funds, he will be required to repay every cent plus a penalty. And if we uncover any additional irregularities, we won't hesitate to escalate matters legally." Elena nodded. A wave of emotion swirled inside her. Vindication, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. She was no longer the naive woman who had ignored the warning signs. "I'll be filing for divorce," she said, gazing out at the city. "I trust that everything I've provided here remains confidential and does not interfere with my legal proceedings." Cristina offered a small, knowing smile. "Of course, we'll ensure this remains separate from your personal affairs." When Elena left the office, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Luca was losing everything: his career, his so-called dream wedding, and possibly even Sophia. The consequences were finally catching up to him. But there were still questions lingering in Elena's mind. Would Luca fight the divorce? Would he try to manipulate her once again? She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of control over her own life. Back at her apartment, she noticed something unusual. An envelope slid under her door. Frowning, she bent down and picked it up. Inside was a simple, handwritten note. "Elena, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but please, I beg you, let me explain my side." Her stomach twisted. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now it seemed, Luca wasn't done with her yet. "Not everything is as it seems. Meet me at the Galleria d'Arte Moderna, main lobby, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Sophia Elena's first instinct was to crumple the note and toss it away. She had no desire to meet the woman who had so brazenly tried to replace her. And yet, not everything is as it seems. That sentence lingered in her mind. Could there be another layer to this already twisted story? The next afternoon, after much deliberation, Elena found herself stepping through the grand entrance of the gallery. The soaring columns and marble floors were flooded with visitors admiring the vast collection of art. And there, sitting stiffly on a bench near a towering sculpture, was Sophia. She wore oversized sunglasses and a black coat, her posture tense as if she were trying to disappear into the surroundings. Elena approached cautiously, arms folded. Sophia slowly removed her sunglasses, revealing tired, haunted eyes. She gestured toward the bench, silently asking Elena to sit. When Elena remained standing, Sophia exhaled shakily. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Elena's voice was clipped. "I'm not sure why I did. You have 5 minutes." Sophia bit her lip, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. Then, in a hushed tone, she spoke. "Luca told me you two were separated, that you wanted the divorce." She swallowed. "By the time I realized that was a lie, I was already in too deep. I was wrong to pursue him, but he kept telling me you were controlling, toxic, that you never supported him." Elena's expression remained unreadable. She had heard those exact words before, twisted narratives Luca had spun to justify his betrayals. But it didn't erase Sophia's own role in this mess. "Why are you telling me this now?" Elena asked. Sophia let out a bitter laugh, slumping against the bench. "Because everything has blown up in my face." She shook her head. "Luca was supposed to be my ticket to a better life. I know that sounds awful, but I'm just being honest. And now he's lost his job. His reputation is in ruins, and I'm blacklisted. No one in the industry wants to hire the woman who tried to marry a married man." She looked away, her voice quieter now. "I can't believe he actually held that wedding, that he had the nerve to act like it was real when he hadn't even finalized a divorce. The humiliation." She trailed off, looking genuinely crestfallen. Elena studied her. She had always seen Sophia as a cunning homewrecker. But sitting in front of her now was a woman who had been just as deceived. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now, even the mistress was realizing she had been nothing more than a pawn. Sophia exhaled, her fingers tightening around her sunglasses. Her voice was quieter now. "So what do you want from me?" She hesitated before answering. "Closure, maybe? An apology." Elena studied her carefully. "I know it doesn't change what happened, but I'm sorry," Sophia continued, her expression pained. "I never should have gone along with his lies. I guess I just wanted you to know that he deceived me too. He told me you two were over, and I was naive enough to believe him." A wave of conflicting emotions crashed over Elena. For so long, she had painted Sophia as the villain, the woman who had deliberately destroyed her marriage. But now she saw something else. A woman who had also been played. Not innocent, but not the mastermind either. Elena's voice was steady. "That doesn't excuse your choices." Sophia nodded, shame flickering in her eyes. "I know, but thank you for hearing me out. For what it's worth, I'm leaving Milan. I have nothing left here." She swallowed. "I just hope you find some peace." They sat in silence, the museum crowd bustling around them, oblivious to the quiet reckoning taking place on that bench. Then Sophia stood, sliding her sunglasses back on. She offered a small, sad smile before vanishing into the sea of visitors. Elena watched her go, feeling something unexpected. Closure. Outside, the sun cast a golden glow over the grand facades of the buildings along the Via Monte Napoleone. She wasn't sure how to process this new perspective. Luca had lied not just to her, but to Sophia as well. He had woven a tapestry of deception so intricate that it had ensnared them both. For the first time, a flicker of pity surfaced in Elena's heart. But it was quickly overshadowed by exhaustion. That evening, she picked up her journal. "I met Sophia today. She apologized. She was betrayed too. Maybe we were both just pieces in Luca's game." She closed the notebook. The past could stay there. Soon, her divorce would be finalized, and she would finally be free from the wreckage of Luca's betrayal. The hardest part was almost over. The week that followed passed in a blur of meetings and paperwork. Elena worked closely with Carla Russo to finalize the divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and documenting Luca's blatant infidelity. With the overwhelming evidence of his financial misconduct, she was able to negotiate a fair settlement, one that freed her from any liability tied to Luca's reckless spending. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And soon, he would have nothing left to hold over her. The corporate investigation concluded with a damning report. Luca Romano had indeed siphoned company funds for personal use, including the extravagant wedding he had planned with Sophia. He was officially fired. And soon, civil litigation from the firm's board could follow. Rumors swirled that some clients were considering legal action of their own, furious at the scandal tarnishing the company's reputation. Elena kept her distance. Luca's calls went unanswered. His texts remained unread. The only communication between them now was through her lawyer. Thomas mentioned in passing that Luca was unraveling. He's been ranting about how everyone abandoned him, he said. But Elena felt nothing. Whatever sympathy she once had was long gone. One morning, Carla Russo called with news. Luca signed the divorce papers, she said. He's waived any claim to the apartment, which is good for you. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That's a relief, she murmured. So, it's final? Not quite, Carla admitted. But it's close. The judge just needs to finalize everything. You'll be completely free in a matter of weeks. That night, Elena reached for a bottle of champagne in her fridge, a gift from Isabella, meant for a moment just like this. She popped the cork and poured herself a glass, lifting it in a quiet toast. Outside her window, the Milan skyline shimmered, the city moving forward, oblivious to the wreckage of her past. She took a slow sip, the bubbles tickling her nose. For the first time in a long time, she felt light. Her phone buzzed. A message from Isabella. Dinner tomorrow night? My treat? Let's celebrate your fresh start. Elena smiled as she typed back a quick yes. Isabella had been her rock through this nightmare, never once wavering, never once letting her feel alone. As she set her phone aside, Elena thought about the woman she was becoming. Someone who had faced betrayal head-on and still managed to stand tall. The next evening, she met Isabella at a chic bistro in the heart of Milan. They settled into a quiet corner booth, indulging in handmade pasta and rich, velvety wine. Isabella insisted they order dessert. Over a decadent chocolate torte, she raised her glass. To you, she said, her eyes warm. The strongest woman I know. I'm so proud of how you've handled all of this. Elena smiled, heat rising to her cheeks. I couldn't have done it without you, Isa. After dinner, they stepped out into the glowing streets, the rain leaving the cobblestones slick and shining under the city lights. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now she was finally free. Tomorrow, Isabella shouted as the taxi pulled away, waving from the back seat. Elena smiled, turning toward home, marveling at how different her life had become. The heartbreak still lingered, a faint ache in the background. But for the first time in a long while, the thought of starting over felt exhilarating. Then, from the shadows of a nearby building, a figure stepped forward. Luca, her breath caught. He looked gaunt, his once confident posture replaced with something hollow. His eyes, rimmed with exhaustion and desperation, locked onto hers. Elena's stomach twisted. She had been careful to avoid him, yet here he was. I've been waiting for you, he said, his voice raw. She instinctively took a step back. How did you know I'd be here? Luca rubbed his hands together, his movements jittery. Isabella posted a picture of you at dinner. She tagged the restaurant. His breath hitched. I had to see you. Rain dripped from his hair, trailing down his face, but he didn't seem to notice. A tense coil formed in Elena's chest. We have nothing left to discuss, she said, her voice measured. The divorce is almost final. This is over. Luca's gaze flickered with something like despair. I lost my job. My reputation is ruined. Sophia left. I have nothing. Elena. Nothing. He reached for her hand, but she recoiled. You made your bed, she said, her tone firm. Lie in it. Luca's breath trembled. I know you owe me nothing, but please, brah, can we just talk? Hear me out. I wasn't thinking straight. Sophia filled my head with all these promises. Elena cut him off, her voice colder than she had ever heard it. Stop blaming Sophia, she snapped. You made choices, Luca. You lied, cheated, and tried to replace me before even finalizing our marriage. The only reason I'm standing here listening is because I once loved you, but that love is gone. A flicker of remorse crossed his face. Then, just as quickly, it twisted into anger. You ruined me, he hissed. The evidence you turned over, the wedding scandal, that's what destroyed my career. Elena felt her blood heat. You destroyed your own career. She met his gaze, unwavering. All I did was shine a light on the truth. Don't you dare put that on me. Her voice rang out over the empty street, carried by the steady drum of rain. Luca opened his mouth to argue, but something inside him seemed to break. The fight drained from his shoulders. His head dipped, his body sagging with defeat. I'm sorry, he murmured, but the words were hollow. Then, without another glance, he turned and disappeared into the neon-lit crowd of Milan. Elena exhaled, her breath unsteady. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now, as the rain blurred the city's glow, she felt more free than ever. Elena tightened her coat around herself, hailed a cab, and went home. Something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt pity, nor did heartbreak weigh her down. In its place was something stronger. Banality. Luca was her past. Her future was hers to create. The final divorce hearing arrived faster than she expected. Despite the tension in the air and the memories that swirled in the back of her mind, Elena remained composed. She wore a simple yet elegant navy suit, sharp, confident, unwavering. Across the courtroom, Luca sat slumped in his chair. His once imposing presence had faded, his sharp features dulled by exhaustion and the crushing weight of his mistakes. He didn't meet her gaze. Carla Russo presented the case with precision, outlining Luca's infidelity and financial misconduct. The evidence was irrefutable. His lawyer, a weary, overburdened public defender, assigned due to Luca's dwindling finances, offered no objections. The only request? Leniency on the timeline for repaying what he owed. The judge, unimpressed with the entire debacle, granted a structured payment plan, ensuring that Luca would be held accountable for every cent. Meanwhile, Elena would receive full ownership of the apartment, free and clear, along with a modest spousal settlement. And just like that, it was over. As she stepped out of the courthouse, Elena exhaled, releasing a breath she felt she had been holding for months. Behind her, Luca hesitated, as if contemplating one last plea, but he said nothing. Instead, he met her eyes for a brief, sorrowful moment. For a flicker of time, she remembered the man she had once loved, the warmth he had once brought into her life. Then she reminded herself of the deception, the betrayal, the brazen wedding with another woman while still married to her. Luca had made his choices. Elena gave him a curt nod, then turned and walked away. Back in her apartment, she stood amidst packed boxes. Though the court had granted her the place, she had decided to sell it. Too many memories haunted its walls. She planned to move closer to Isabella's neighborhood, somewhere new, somewhere untouched by her past. A fresh start. Tomorrow, her friends would help with the last of the furniture. Elena reached for a dust-covered album sitting on a shelf. She hesitated, then carefully opened it. There they were. She and Luca, standing in a vineyard, beaming with naive hope. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And now, as Elena stared at the faded photographs, she felt only one thing: relief. Elena carefully removed a single photograph from the album, the one of her and Luca cutting their wedding cake. She tucked it into a keepsake folder, allowing herself this one small reminder of the past. The rest, she placed it gently in a donation box, ready to let go. As she carried a few items to the curb for donation pickup, her phone buzzed in her pocket. An unknown number. After a moment of hesitation, she answered. "Hello?" A soft voice responded. "Elena, it's Sophia." Elena froze. She thought Sophia had disappeared from her life for good. "How did you get this number?" Sophia sighed. "I asked Matteo. I hope that's okay. I just wanted to tell you I've left Milan. I'm out west, trying to rebuild my life." Elena nodded to herself. "I see. Good luck." A pause, then Sophia's voice wavered. "I just wanted to thank you for hearing me out that day at the gallery, and for reminding Luca that actions have consequences. He tried to contact me, but I blocked him." She hesitated before adding, "I hope you find peace." Elena sensed the sincerity in her words. "I hope you do too," she replied softly. Ending the call, she felt something unexpected: relief. Later that evening, she invited Isabella and Matteo over for takeout. They sat on the living room floor amid half-packed boxes, using them as makeshift tables, laughter filling the space with warmth. Matteo shyly admitted he was seeing someone new from the finance department. Isabella joked about her disastrous dating app experiences, drawing uncontrollable laughter from Elena. For the first time in a long time, she felt light. Nicholas had once been her anchor, but now she was lifted by her own strength and the unwavering support of true friends. After dinner, she hugged them both goodbye, promising a proper housewarming once she found her new place. Alone, she stood by the window one last time, gazing out at the city lights. Yes, the heartbreak had been real. The betrayal had cut deep, but so had her resilience. She thought back to the moment at the wedding, the hushed silence as she handed Luca that damning folder, the way the truth unraveled right before his eyes. She had walked through the storm, and it had not broken her. Tomorrow she would begin again, free from Luca, free from Sophia, free from the weight of the past. Placing a hand on the cool glass, she allowed herself a small smile. Then, with steady hands, she switched off the lights. A wealthy millionaire husband weds his mistress, but his pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in sheer panic. And as Elena stepped away, she embraced the boundless possibilities of a future finally her own.